In this video, I'm going to be talking about programming language translators, or sometimes referred to as language translators. Okay, so we know that source code or the instructions that a developer writes have to be converted to binary. So that conversion from one language to another, okay, that is called language translation. Okay, so sometimes you need to convert your program or your software into binary. Sometimes you have to convert it from Java to C++, from C++ to JavaScript. Okay, so this is what we're going to cover in this course. How does that happen? Okay, so first of all, we should be able to understand that a language translator is just simply a software that changes, okay, it changes source code or instructions that are passed to a computer from one language into another. Okay, that is all it does for you. Okay, it's just going to change source code. It gets the source code that you write. Okay, so you're programming in VS Code here. You write your instructions like this. It's going to change these instructions, okay, into another language. Sometimes it could be binary. Sometimes it could be another programming language. So the software that is responsible for doing that job is called a language translator. Okay, so the first type of a language translator that we're going to look at is going to be called a compiler. So a compiler is strictly a software that changes code into binary. Okay, it gets source code that you write, whether you write it in Java or in C++ or in JavaScript, and then it changes that source code into binary. Okay, some examples of the compilers that we have, for example, we have the GCC compiler in the GNU compiler collection. So the GCC compiler converts C++ or C code into binary. In the case of Java here, okay, Java is converted to binary using a compiler called the JCO, the Java C compiler, okay, or Java C, okay. So that just means Java compiler anyway. So it just converts Java code into what? Into binary. So a compiler is just simply a language translator or a software that changes source code into binary. Okay, so after we look at a compiler, we should also come to understand an interpreter. Okay, so an interpreter is also simply a software that changes source code into binary. So an interpreter functions the same way that a compiler functions. It just gets source code that you've written in Java and converts it into binary. Okay, so examples of interpreters are CPython interpreter. So you know that Python is not a compiled programming language, but rather it is changed into binary using an interpreter, not a compiler software, but an interpreter software. Okay, so we have the Z engine that works in the PHP. We have the V8 engine that works in JavaScript. So there are so many of them, but I'm just giving maybe the popular examples. Okay. So after you understand a compiler and an interpreter, you also have to understand a transpiler. Okay. So a transpiler is simply a software that changes code from one programming language into another programming language. So what happens is that it converts, let's say you write your program here, you write your program in Java, right? Okay, you write your program in Java. Let's say you build the software as big as Photoshop in Java. Then you realize that you don't want, it's a bit slow, maybe in Java, not that it would be as an example. And then you want to change it to C or to C++. Instead of you rewriting all that source code, you're going to get the Java code, run it through a transpiler, which is going to give you the Java code, but in C++ code. So the same instructions the same instructions that you wrote in the Java code are the same instructions that are going to be translated into C++, and it works exactly the same way, but in the C++ environment. Okay, so you need to understand that the language translator simply changes a programming language from one language to another. Okay, so under types of these language translators, you have a compiler. It's just a language translator that changes source code. Let's say C++ to binary or Java to binary. You have an interpreter. An interpreter is also a language translator, but just changes also source code into binary code as well. A transpiler changes source code into another form of source code. It does not change source code from source code to binary, from some sort of instruction. Let's say Java to binary. It will go from Java to let's say JavaScript. An example is the Google Web Toolkit. The Google Web Toolkit changes Java specifically. Okay, it's meant to change Java into JavaScript. Okay, that's what the web toolkit does for you. In Babel converts JSX into JavaScript. Okay, Godzilla is also another popular transpiler that converts C++ into Java. It does a lot of conversions, this one. Okay, so this is about language translators. At times you need to change from programming language into binary, and sometimes from one programming language into another programming language. So this marks the end of the lesson on language translators.